beyond comprehension. But I'm joined now by Chris-Grollnek. He's a retired police officer, an active shooter prevention expert, and Fox Nation host Tomi. Welcome to both of you. Let me start with you, Chris, if I may. You're a specialist in this very kind of scenario. You know, I wrote a column for the New York Post yesterday, just lambasting what happened here as, I'm afraid, cowardice. I mean, the idea that 19 armed police were in that school for over an hour and didn't go into that classroom is, to me, unconscionable.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Piers, and hello, Tomi. Great to see you again. For this tragedy, I wish we weren't speaking about this. However, what we've seen is we've spent about $10 million since Sandy Hook on training approximately 140,000 police on response tactics of how to respond to an active shooter. And we see, after a similar Pulse, Parkland, Uvalde, and there's several others, they're not responding appropriately. And there's no excuse for this one. And I have, I'm not just speaking out of my mouth. I've been in an active shooter in real time as a policeman, where somebody just decides they're going to start shooting at you, and they attack you, and you have no call, so you have to react. This is different. Domestic assault. Well, these are children, and I don't really speak about children, but there's a message to be evangelized here, and that is we have to change a lot, not just a binary choice of guns or mental health. We have to evaluate the whole spectrum and decide who we're talking to.
Right. I mean, I think, Tomi, you and I have talked about guns before. I don't want to re-legislate that debate. What strikes me about this particular 2-week period, you've had the mass shooting in Buffalo, where 10 black people were murdered by a white supremacist in a supermarket. You've now had 19 children annihilated in their classroom, exactly the same as what happened in Sandy Hook 10 years ago. And we know nothing got changed. And it's not as simple as saying take all the guns away. There are too many guns in America to do that. And also there is a constitutional right, which I know a lot of Americans feel strongly about their right to bear arms. And we just don't have that kind of issue here. So I'm not going to legislate that with you. I'm just curious, what can be done here? The normal response from the pro-gun lobby is, well, you need to have more guns so that good guys with guns can stop it. But we had 19 supposed good guys with guns in the school hallway doing nothing. So that can't be the answer.
Well, I think that we have to look at this situation apart from other situations where law enforcement did fail here. And I am a big advocate and supporter of law enforcement, but we have to take a look at the situation. There's going to be an investigation, and the people of that community and the people of the world deserve to know what happened, what lapse in communication occurred there, and what went so wrong. Going back to the discussion about guns, what we do to address this issue, it is an issue of mental health as well, and I'll speak to that in a moment. But I would also say this, when we're talking about our constitutional rights, making law-abiding citizens helpless and outgunned does not make evil people any less harmful. So that is a discussion that needs to be had, but also mental health. When you look at individuals like this, there is a common thread and pattern. These individuals are on social media platforms, on different chat rooms, torturing animals, abusing animals, talking about violence, talking about how they want to harm people. Why is there not a mechanism to report this? The world is watching these individuals promise to do harm, and nothing is done, and nothing is said. Tomi, and Piers, I would also say...
I would say, look, I agree there are a number of things at play here. Mental health is clearly a massive problem. These are evil, twisted people, and they all seem to be getting younger and younger, and it's incredibly worrying. I know that the Sandy Hook shooter, for example, and this shooter both had a weird obsession with Call of Duty, which is a video game where you play a lone shooter. Right? Is there no connection between that and mental illness and the ready availability of guns? I'm sure there is a connection. There are lots of things going on here. But I think the rest of the world looks at these incidents in America happening time and time again and just wonders whether anything will actually be done about guns themselves. And what do you think the answer is? I mean, when I asked the lady earlier, this guy couldn't buy a beer till he was 21. Americans accept that. They accept that. They accept regulation when they drive cars, which can be dangerous. But why was he able to get a semi-automatic rifle?
May I just interject on one thing, Piers? Because I do think it's a simple question.
Jump in as well.
Okay, Chris, yeah.
I apologize. So we know that 100% of active shooters and mass killers share a common trait out of a number of common traits. The problem with that benchmark is me and you share at least one of those traits. Maybe we've been wronged in our whole life. Maybe we had whatever the problem is. So if we throw that metric out and we look at one statistic that the FBI has put out in 21 years, 47.3% of active shooters telegraph that they're going to be active shooters, and yet they still legally purchase firearms.
Right.
That's where I tell you, I agree.
I think the lack of. I think if I could jump in, Chris, I think the lack of proper red flag spotting. You know, every single time stuff comes out about these shooters, you think, well, why didn't that get picked up? Why wasn't that shown on their background check when they go and get these guns legally? But Tomi, you wanted to answer before Chris stepped in there.
Yes.
When I agree with Chris wholeheartedly, we also need to address some of the cultural issues that we have in the United States of America. And it's not just gun culture. It's also a culture of fatherlessness. It's a culture of young people falling through the cracks. And I'm glad that Chris is talking about some of these traits, because you don't see young women doing this. You see young men doing this, young men who are incredibly angry, young men who often share that common thread of not having fathers or parents in the household that are raising them correctly. So we're going to have to address a whole litany of issues. It's not just the gun. I know it's easy to go after the weapon, but there are millions of Americans who own firearms and who own what they call assault weapons, and they don't go out and they don't become mass shooters. They use them for home defense and protection. So there's bigger issues to be discussed here besides just the weapon, important issues that are a little bit more challenging, and that's why I feel that so many fail to address them.
I think it is a very complex issue in America. You know, when Britain got rid of its guns after the Dunblane massacre in the 90s, we were not a gun culture country. Most people in Britain did not have a gun to start with. So it was a much easier thing to do and a much easier thing for all sides of the political divide to agree with. So it's very complicated in America. I completely accept that. Listen, got to leave it there. Chris, Tomi, thank you both very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you both.
Thank you.